The second line appeared and my world ended. Not because I was pregnant, because 3 months ago, I'd signed a contract I never actually read. And buried in Clause 42, subsection D, was a sentence that made my blood turn to ice. Biological compensation protocols activate upon confirmed conception within the contracted employment period. I wasn't just a maid in Clint M. Albert's mansion. I was livestock. And the worst part? I'd done this to myself. I actually blamed myself. How stupid was I? How desperate? How blind? Let me go back, because the devil isn't in the details. He's in the desperation that makes you stop looking for him. My name is Rita Morales, and 6 months ago, I was drowning. My mom's second heart surgery cost more than I'd make in 5 years as a hotel housekeeper. The hospital gave us 2 weeks before they'd reassess her care. Corporate speak for let her die. I was already working 2 jobs. I'd sold everything I owned. I'd maxed out credit cards I didn't even qualify for. I was 3 days away from begging on street corners when my phone rang. Meridian Staffing Solutions. Premium placement, 6-figure signing bonus, full medical coverage for immediate family members. All I had to do was sign a 12-month contract as a residential estate manager for the Albert family. The recruiter, a woman named Miss Delacroix with a smile that never reached her eyes, handed me a pen that probably cost more than my rent. 347 pages, she said, standard for high net worth households, liability, NDA protocols, wellness standards. You can have your attorney review it, of course. I didn't have an attorney. I didn't even have time. My mom's surgery was in 6 days. I signed 17 times in gold ink. Miss Delacroix handed me a vitamin regimen. Mr. Albert's household maintains strict wellness standards. These are mandatory, daily, no exceptions. I thought they were multivitamins. They were fertility hormones, ovulation stimulators, and uterine lining enhancers. I poisoned myself for 3 months and called it employment. Clint M. Albert looked exactly like his Forbes cover. 6'3", jawline that could cut glass, and eyes the color of a winter lake. Beautiful and absolutely dead inside. At 34, he turned his father's real estate empire into a tech-driven monstrosity worth $18 billion. The rumors called him the algorithm because he made decisions like a machine. No emotion, just data. He didn't greet me on my first day. He didn't even look at me. His executive assistant, a man named Gregory, who spoke in a monotone, handed me a tablet. Your duties, Miss Morales. Mr. Albert's schedule is synchronized to your device. He requires silence before 9 a.m., espresso at 9:02 a.m. precisely, and invisibility at all times. You are staff, not scenery. Understand? I nodded. For the first month, I saw Clint maybe 6 times. He existed in a different atmosphere. Conference calls in Tokyo, charity galas, closed-door meetings that made grown men cry. I cleaned rooms he never entered. I pressed suits he'd wear once in discard. I steamed shirts that cost more than my mom's medication. I was a ghost in a 40-room mansion. And then I met her, Vanessa Albert. Vanessa Albert wasn't just beautiful. She was a weapon disguised as a woman. Every word came out like honey laced with arsenic. She'd glide through rooms in Chanel and Dior, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and crushed spirits. She cornered me in the West Wing library on my 3rd week. "You're the new help," she said, inspecting me like I was a stain on her Italian leather couch. "Tell me, Rita, may I call you Rita? How old are you?" 26, ma'am." "Perfect age," she said, more to herself than to me. "And your medical history? Any complications, hormonal issues, fertility problems. I laughed nervously. I don't think that's just curious. Her smile was sharp. We've had such trouble with staff longevity. The last few girls had such unfortunate incompatibilities. She walked away before I could respond, and I felt something cold crawl up my spine. But I ignored it. I needed this job. I needed my mom to live. So when the mandatory health screening came in week 8, I didn't question it. When they took blood, urine, and ran an invasive ultrasound, I assumed it was standard billionaire paranoia. When the doctor, a private physician named Dr. Reeves with cold hands, smiled and said, "Everything looks perfect for optimal conception," I thought she was talking about her future patients. I was so stupid, and I hate that I didn't see it. I hate that I was too desperate to ask questions. I hate myself for being the perfect victim. I fainted while steaming Clint's Brioni suit. One second, I was upright. The next, the world tilted sideways and I hit marble. I woke up in a room that didn't exist on any floor plan I'd seen. All white, sterile, with medical equipment that looked like it belonged in a fertility clinic. Because it was a fertility clinic, hidden in the estate's east wing. Dr. Reeves stood over me, tablet in hand, wearing the same cold smile. "Congratulations, Rita. You're 11 weeks along. Right on schedule." My brain short-circuited. "I'm... what?" "Pregnant," she said, like she was confirming a grocery delivery. "The hormone regimen worked beautifully. We weren't sure your cycle would sync with the insemination schedule, but you responded perfectly." I sat up so fast, the room spun. "What insemination? I didn't. I haven't been with anyone." The door opened. Vanessa walked in holding a leather binder. Behind her, Clint stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face blank. "Oh, good, you're awake," Vanessa said brightly. She dropped the binder on my lap. "Your real contract, darling. I suggest you read Clause 42 this time, though it's a bit late for that now." The words didn't make sense at first. My brain refused to process them. Employee agrees to serve as gestational surrogate for the Albert estate, genetic material provided by Clint M. Albert via artificial insemination conducted during routine health screenings. Upon successful live birth, employee relinquishes all parental rights in perpetuity, financial compensation of $500,000 upon delivery of viable heir. Breach of contract results in immediate recall of $150,000 signing bonus and termination of all medical benefits extended to employees' designated family members. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the pages. I looked up at Vanessa. You inseminated me? Without my consent? Without me even being awake?" She shrugged, examining her manicure. "You consented when you signed. Page 231, subsection D. It's all very legal. Our attorneys are very thorough." "This is rape," I whispered. Clint finally spoke. His voice was flat, mechanical, devoid of anything human. "It's a contract, and you're 11 weeks past the legal window for termination in this state. Dr. Reeves will monitor your prenatal health. You'll continue your standard duties as scheduled. When the child is born, you'll receive your compensation and a confidential separation agreement." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw nothing. No guilt, no hesitation, no recognition that I was a human being sitting in front of him. Just a billionaire solving a logistics problem. "Why?" I cracked. "Why me?" Vanessa laughed. It was a beautiful sound, perfectly modulated, utterly cruel. "Because you were desperate, and desperate people don't read fine print. Also, your genetic profile was exceptional. Good bone structure, no family history of mental illness, high IQ despite your circumstances. You're basically a discount broodmare. If you're listening to this right now, I need you to help me prove something. When I first started sharing these stories, someone told me that voices like mine, stories like this, would never matter to enough people, that nobody cares about the powerless. But I think they're wrong. I think stories about survival, about fighting back against impossible odds, do matter. So if this story means something to you, if you think these voices deserve to be heard, subscribe. Help me prove that truth is stronger than silence. Now, let me tell you what happened next, because it gets so much worse before it gets better. I tried to run that night. I packed a bag with shaking hands and headed for the service entrance. The gate didn't open. A security guard I'd never seen before, built like a tank, name tag said Hayes, stepped into my path. "Miss Morales, it's past curfew." "I don't have a curfew. I'm leaving." "No, ma'am, you're not." I pulled out my phone. Dead. I tried to turn it on. Nothing. I ran back inside, tried every landline in the house, all disconnected. They'd cut me off. Completely. I had a panic attack in my room. Full blown. I couldn't breathe. I clawed at my throat thinking I was dying. And all I could think was, my mom. What happens to my mom? I found Clint in his study at 2 a.m., scotch in hand, staring at a wall of monitors showing global stock tickers. "You can't keep me here," I said. My voice was hoarse from crying. "This is kidnapping. It's illegal. I'll call the police. He didn't look at me. "Your mother's discharge from St. Mercy's hospice wing was contingent on continued payment of her medical bills. As of this morning, those bills total $340,000. If you breach your contract, that debt transfers to her estate immediately. She'll be evicted from medical care within 48 hours and pursued by collections until bankruptcy. It will destroy her credit, her housing prospects, and her ability to receive future care." My knees buckled. I grabbed the edge of his desk to stay upright. You'd kill her?" He finally looked at me, and I'll never forget his expression. Not angry, not guilty, just tired. He said, "I'd enforce a contract. You have 8 months left, Rita. Do your job, birth a healthy child, walk away with $500,000, or fight this, lose everything, and destroy your mother in the process." He turned back to his monitors. "Your choice." And that's when I realized he wasn't a monster. He was worse. He was a man who'd turned off his humanity so completely he didn't even see what he was doing. I didn't want to love him. That's the truth I'm ashamed to admit. For the first 3 months after I found out, I saw this pregnancy as a thing, a parasite, a trap, evidence of what they'd done to me. But bodies don't care about trauma. Bodies do what they're built to do. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday when I felt the first kick. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, planning my next move. And then a flutter, like a butterfly trapped under my ribs. I put my hand on my stomach and felt it again. And I started crying. Not sad crying, not angry crying, just crying. "I didn't ask for you," I whispered to my belly, "and I don't know how to protect you, but I'm going to try. I promise you that. They can own this house, they can own my contract, but they don't own you. You're mine." He kicked again, like he was answering, and that's when I stopped being a victim. I became a mother. Everything I did after that moment, every risk I took, every line I crossed, it wasn't for me anymore. It was for him. One night, 5 months into the pregnancy, I heard Vanessa on the phone in her private salon. "No, Charles, the surrogate doesn't need to know about phase 2. Yes, the moment the birth certificate is filed, we execute the theft charges. I've already planted the Cartier necklace in her quarters, the one from the robbery last month. She'll be in county lockup before she even sees the baby." "What? Clint? God, no. He has no idea. He's too busy playing CEO to notice I'm running this whole operation." I pressed my ear against the door, my heart pounding so hard I thought she'd hear it. She wasn't just using me as a womb. She'd done this to other women, multiple women, and she was going to bury me in a prison cell the second I gave birth. But then I heard something that made my blood freeze. The miscarriage scare last month with this one was unfortunate, but I handled it. What? Oh, I just withheld her prenatal vitamins for 2 weeks. Wanted to see if she'd lose it naturally. Would have saved us so much trouble. But she's annoyingly resilient. She'd tried to kill my baby. My baby. And in that moment, something inside me turned to steel. I found Hayes on his midnight shift 3 days later, eating cold pizza in the staff kitchen. "Do you know what they're doing to me?" I asked. He looked up, surprised. We'd never spoken. I'm paid not to ask questions. I was artificially inseminated without my knowledge. I'm being held here against my will, and when I give birth, they're going to frame me for theft and send me to prison. I said it flatly, like I was reading a grocery list. There were others before me, at least 3 that I know of. Hayes put down his pizza. "That's not my business." "You have kids?" His jaw tightened. "What's that got to do with anything?" "Just answer." "A daughter, 11. If someone did this to her in 15 years, what would you want a man in your position to do?" He stared at me for a long time. Then he stood up and walked to the sink, started washing his hands. "What do you need?" he finally asked. "Access, evidence, and time." He dried his hands slowly. "I can give you Sundays, 1 hour. Clint golfs, Vanessa does spa days. The house is mostly empty except for minimal staff. Why would you help me?" He looked at me with something like disgust, but not for me, for himself. Because I've been watching this happen for 2 years, and I told myself it wasn't my problem. He threw the towel on the counter. "I'm done lying to myself." For 6 weeks, Hayes and I built a case. He gave me access to security footage I wasn't supposed to see, video of Dr. Reeves injecting me with sedatives during that first health screening, then performing the insemination while I was unconscious. There was audio of Vanessa's phone calls with her lawyer, planning my arrest down to the minute. But the smoking gun came from somewhere I didn't expect. Clint's private office. Hayes gave me 15 minutes alone in there one Sunday. The safe combination was written on a Post-it note stuck to the underside of his desk drawer. Even billionaires are lazy with security. Inside, the original contract, the one I actually signed. Clause 42 didn't exist in my version. It had been added after my signature, digitally inserted with a forged initial. Vanessa committed fraud. But there was more. A file labeled Previous Household Employees, NDAs, Litigation Settled. I opened it. 3 women, 3 NDAs, 3 payouts, but only after they'd served prison time for theft they didn't commit. Jessica Tran, 22 months, grand larceny. Sophie Camora, 18 months, embezzlement. Maria dos Santos, 14 months, fraud. All of them had given birth. None of them had been allowed to keep their babies. All of them had been destroyed. I copied everything. My hands shook so badly I could barely operate the machine. And tucked at the very back of the safe was something else. Divorce papers, filed by Clint, dated 2 years ago. Vanessa had blocked them using a prenuptial clause that required an heir within 5 years of marriage, or she'd get 70% of his liquid assets in the divorce. I wasn't just carrying their baby. I was carrying her $12.6 billion parachute. The Albert Foundation annual gala was held at the estate. 400 guests. Politicians, tech CEOs, old money aristocrats, entertainment moguls, everyone who mattered in society. Vanessa had planned it as her coronation, the devoted wife, the coming heir, the perfect American dynasty. She didn't know I'd be there. Hayes had smuggled in a dress, emerald green, Valentino, maternity-tailored, and a stylist he'd paid in cash to do my hair and makeup. I walked into that ballroom at 8:47 p.m., my belly 8 months swollen, my hair swept into an elegant updo, my face made up like I belonged there. The room went silent. Vanessa's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble floor. Clint was mid-speech on stage, talking about legacy and the future of family values and building tomorrow's leaders. I walked straight down the center aisle. Every phone in the room turned toward me. Every camera, every witness. I climbed the stage stairs. Clint stopped talking, confused. I took the microphone from his hand. "Good evening," I said. My voice echoed through the ballroom. "My name is Rita Morales. I'm 26 years old, I'm a high school graduate from East Los Angeles, and I'm 8 months pregnant with Clint Alberts, a child I've been carrying without my knowledge, without my consent, and without my legal agreement." The room erupted. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I spoke clearly, methodically, like I was presenting a quarterly report. 3 months into my employment as a maid, I was sedated and artificially inseminated during what I was told was a routine health screening. I pulled out the documents Hayes had helped me prepare, printed, notarized, highlighted. This is the contract I signed. This is the contract Vanessa Albert altered after I signed it. I handed them to Clint, not privately, right there on stage in front of 400 witnesses and a dozen news cameras that had been invited to cover the charity event. Clint opened the folder. I watched his face change, from confusion to disbelief to something that might have been horror. "But that's not all," I continued. I pulled out the second folder. "Vanessa Albert has done this before, to at least 3 other women. Jessica Tran, Sophie Kimura, Maria das Santos, all of them framed for theft, all of them imprisoned, all of them separated from their children permanently." I handed that folder to a CNN reporter in the front row. "And finally," I said, my voice starting to shake now, "Vanessa Albert attempted to cause a miscarriage by withholding my prenatal vitamins for 2 weeks. I have recordings of her admitting this to her attorney." I played the audio. Her voice filled the ballroom. "The miscarriage scare was unfortunate, but I handled it. I just withheld her prenatal vitamins. Would have saved us so much trouble." Vanessa tried to run. Hayes blocked the exit. 2 other security guards, ones he'd convinced, stood with him. The police arrived 9 minutes later. Hayes had called them before the gala started. Vanessa was arrested for conspiracy, fraud, human trafficking, attempted assault of an unborn child, and 3 counts of criminal conspiracy in the previous cases. Dr. Reeves, who tried to flee through the kitchen, was tackled by the catering staff and held until police arrived. The entire Albert estate went into legal lockdown. And Clint just stood there on that stage, looking at me like his entire world had been revealed as a lie. "I didn't know, Rita," he whispered. "I swear I didn't know she forged the—" "But you knew enough," I said. My voice was steady now, cold. "You knew I was pregnant. You knew I was trapped. You knew my mother's life was being used as leverage, and you chose your heir over my humanity. You looked at me and saw a womb with legs." His face crumbled. "That makes you complicit. That makes you guilty. And that makes you someone who will never easily earn the right to be this child's father." I walked off that stage and straight into an ambulance Hayes had waiting, because my water had broken halfway through my speech. I'd given my testimony in active labor. I gave birth to a boy, 7 pounds, 6 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes. Perfect. I named him Gabriel, after my grandfather. Hayes came to visit me the next day. He brought flowers, cheap grocery store carnations, and looked uncomfortable in the hospital room. "Thank you," I said. For everything. He shook his head. Don't thank me. I should have done something 2 years ago. But you did it when it mattered. You saved us. He looked at Gabriel sleeping in my arms. What happens now? Now, I rebuild. And you testify because Jessica, Sophie, and Maria deserve justice too. He nodded. Already gave my statement to the DA. Full cooperation. 3 months later, Hayes testified in court. He detailed everything, the surveillance, the coercion, Vanessa's operation. His testimony was devastating. The media called him a hero. He called himself late to the party. But I knew the truth. He was a man who chose to do the right thing when it would have been easier to stay silent. That's rare. And it matters. Clint didn't come to the hospital that night, or the next day, or the day after that. What came instead were news vans, headlines, legal motions. Billionaire heir embroiled in human trafficking scandal. Vanessa Albert accused of systemic reproductive coercion. 3 women come forward. She destroyed our lives. The Albert name became synonymous with corruption overnight. Stock prices plummeted, board members resigned. Clint's entire empire began to crumble. He finally came to see me 6 weeks later. I was in the apartment Hayes had helped me secure. Modest, safe, mine. Clint looked like he'd aged 10 years, unshaven, hollow-eyed, broken. I've resigned from the company, he said. I've liquidated half my assets to fund reparations for Jessica, Sophie, and Maria. I've established a legal fund for victims of reproductive coercion, and I've signed over my parental rights. He handed me papers. I looked at him. You think that fixes this? No, his voice cracked. Nothing fixes this. But it's a start. I asked, you want to meet him? He looked shocked. You'd let me? No, I said firmly. Not now, not for a long time, maybe not ever. You don't get to be a father today, Clint. You earn that over years. You prove that you're more than a man who turned off his heart to protect his bank account. I stood up, Gabriel sleeping in my arms. You come back in 5 years. You show me that you've actually changed, not just paid your way out of guilt. You show me you understand what you took from me. And maybe, if you've become an actual human being by then, I'll let you meet your son. And if I don't, he whispered, then you live with what you've done, just like I have to. He nodded and left. Vanessa got 15 years in federal prison. Dr. Reeves got 12 and lost her medical license permanently. Jessica, Sophie, and Maria each received full pardons and $4 million settlements. Their criminal records were expunged. They're rebuilding their lives. Hayes testified at every hearing. The media called him a whistleblower. I call him family. As for me, I didn't just disappear into a quiet life. I became a witness, an advocate. I testified before Congress about reproductive coercion in employment contracts. I helped draft legislation that makes fertility clauses in any employment agreement a federal crime. I started a foundation, the Gabriel Project, that provides legal aid to women trapped in exploitative contracts. We've helped 47 women so far. 47 women who won't have to fight alone like I did. And I learned to read contracts, really read them. Every word, every clause, every implication. I work now as a paralegal for a victims' rights organization. $32,000 a year, health insurance, fair hours, a contract I negotiated myself. It's not a mansion, but it's mine. As for Clint, last I heard, he's working at a legal aid clinic, 70 hours a week, no salary. He sold his penthouse and lives in a studio apartment in Queens. He sends me letters, once a month. I open them now. Sometimes I even respond. But I haven't let him meet Gabriel, not yet. Because forgiveness isn't something you give when someone says sorry. It's something you offer when they've actually become someone worth forgiving. And that takes time, years, maybe a lifetime. I don't hate Clint anymore, but I don't trust him either. He was a man who saw me as a transaction, and transactions don't raise children. So, here's what I want you to remember. Read the fine print. Always. Question the desperate jobs that seem too good to be true. And know that wealth can buy a signature, but it can't buy back your soul. I was trapped by a pen, a predator, and my own desperation. But I escaped with something they never expected. My voice, my son, and my refusal to let them win. Sometimes the prey doesn't just bite back. Sometimes she burns the whole system down and builds something better in its place.